What's up to our UAC family? I'm Dr. Alan Miner here doing this month's masterclass with Dr. Matt Loop. And Matt, we got a lot to talk about here. I was reflecting, to me, and I don't know, this might be how people perceive you, or it might be opposite, but I really think of you as the first guy I came across that was talking about social media. And quite frankly, a long time ago, I know your book's somewhere on my walls here. I think it's probably the first social media book I bought. And I've kind of just seen you consistently now for probably a decade or longer, showing up, teaching, always a little different insight. There's a lot of gurus, we'll call them, that pop up. You've always been different to me because you never got into the really marketing ad side of it, at least from my perspective. Um, and more than anything, I was thinking about UAC and as a whole, there's been several people inside the group who've really popped up large, even a few over a million people followings who've created some big cash flow, seven-figure businesses. But then there's also a lot of people in UAC, and I put myself in this category where I've got a lot of brick and mortar businesses that we're still trying to figure out how do we elevate the practitioners in our clinics so that they have a personal brand. And I still feel like this is the Wild West. Is it TikTok? Is it Instagram? Is it Meta? Is it so? I don't know where I want to take it, but I really, of all anybody I'd call a guru in social media and chiropractic, I think you're deserving of the title. You've been showing up and doing it consistently for a decade. So, and I bet I'm not much different than most people watching this. So where do you even go with that? But that's kind of that's my intro for you.
No, I appreciate the kind words. I don't consider myself a guru. I mean, I've been doing this a very long time since the MySpace, YouTube days back in
Yeah.
2006, and before anyone knew kind of what, like even me, I had no idea what would happen. Right, trying to build my office with this quote kid stuff, and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
people are coming in, and then other docs are asking me what I was doing. So, but it's fascinating how our journeys just veer and evolve sometimes. But to your point, when I've looked at just my brand and trying to help docs all these years, I think the one thing that I have done really well is consistency, where I'm always
Yeah.
putting out content and I will, I just look at it from a fact of I'll outgive anyone. And you learn things as you go over the years. Initially, when you start online, it's about trying to find your voice. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy to mimic other people because you're buying their courses or following them. And I think early on, I didn't totally have my own voice. I had some
Yeah.
things that I was really delivering value on and helping docs, and I had a lot of testimonials, which was awesome. But eventually, I kind of settled in to say, okay, this is me. This is how I want my brand portrayed. This is what I will do. This is what I won't do. And then, X amount of years ago, let's say it was 10 years ago, when you started to see all these people that would take an online course about Facebook marketing, and then like now they're training docs on how to do all this stuff. And I was just like looking, I knew I didn't want to be that, even though I was coaching and consulting docs on high leverage ad campaign strategies. So I've always tried to at least find the unique differentiating factors in the marketplace, not just for my own brand, but for all these other doctors, since you might have 10 other docs that are running similar style ads
Yeah.
or content in their local news feeds. Everyone's seeing the same thing, so you blend in. People have banner blindness, so I think that it's important, especially in today's time, to really figure out your unique selling proposition, your what makes you different, and also like zig while others are zagging. Reverse engineer who your competitors are, how they're showing up in the market, and then you show up more consistently, get in every single nook and cranny, and then you just be totally different, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Where I saw you, I remember consciously thinking this is sometime probably during the COVID season.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you started getting really vocal politically. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, that's what all of us chiros are thinking, but wow, that's pretty ballsy. Matt's got a big brand and he's like not afraid to call out the bullshit that's out there. And I remember thinking, is that going to hurt him? Are they going to censor him? And what's your thoughts on that? And in the end, I think you came out probably with more of an established brand and who you are because of it.
100%, yeah. I drew a line for sure, and I just couldn't shut up about certain things, and I risked quite a bit. As you can imagine, we get a lot of business from social media, and I was shadow banned numerous times. Had a couple of accounts that were completely off, gone, and then I got them back. The distribution and visibility on those still isn't great, but there are just times in your life where you're like, this is too important not to speak up. And I
Yeah.
was, and but the beautiful thing is, you know this, it's like when you figure out who you are and what you represent and what you stand against, you naturally attract the right people to you. So all the coaching applications and mastermind applications that I would get, literally, I mean, I did have a good brand from a social media growth side of things, or teaching docs how to create passive income online. But quite honestly, I don't remember one that actually said that. Like, I'm choosing you because you said what I wanted to say, and I respect your attitudes, values, and we are like each other, so I know this is going to work. And that
Yeah.
was, I mean, I was grateful that there was a lot of support for sure by the chiropractic profession, and
Yeah.
but it was a very interesting time.
Yeah, I remember knowing that was probably the right thing to do, but for a lot of the practices that were willing to take a stand, we were rewarded, but it was scary because you didn't know where that was going.
No, no, and every state was a little bit different, and I understand. I try to be very empathetic with people and doctors because there were certain states that, I mean, I've heard of doctors losing their licenses, getting put on probation, getting the health department called. It was just a very bizarre time, and hopefully we don't have to relive that again. But as I came out of it, I just definitely solidified, I think, my place as somebody that will add value, but also is not afraid to speak about certain topics, regardless of what the platforms are doing, which really reinforced the fact that even if you're a chiropractor just posting health information online right now, you should absolutely have at least 3 different ad accounts, for instance,
Wow.
and potentially 1 or 2 extra Facebook pages that might be inactive, but you just never know how things will evolve because. And right now, yes, we've seen a decrease in censorship on certain platforms. Some platforms don't give the reach organically like they used to, for sure.
Yeah.
However, I just always like to think worst case scenario, let me plan for the future. And whether it's my wife, like my wife has admin access on my accounts, and we've got a business ads manager and a couple other here. so
Yeah.
so it's good
Yeah.
to plan.
Yeah. You've obviously been through the pain of that any of us have when you lose an account. It's brutal, man.
Sure, sure.
How, Matt, help everybody understand. As an outsider, I see you wear a few hats. I know you do coaching mastermind groups,
Hmm.
and I've always admired you do them kind of experiential things. I've seen you at Porsche. I've seen you taking people out, firing huge weaponry in Vegas, and I've noticed you always build these kind of, I don't know if you call them retreats, but to me they're kind of built around something. Is that, and then I really don't understand. Do people hire you to mentor them for social media? Do they hire you as a coach in other areas? Do they hire you to do ads or to do strategy? Like, kind of explain who's your ideal customer that comes to you and what services do you provide for them in today's market?
Yeah, for sure. From a chiropractor standpoint, I get a lot of docs that want me to show them and their team how to bring the social media organic and the ads in house. So I will train their team KPIs, what to measure, how to track everything, help them craft campaigns and things like that. So they're able to track and measure a lot easier.
Yeah.
There are some good companies out there. There are a lot of not so good companies out there in the ad space. So I've just found that over the years, if you have your finger on the pulse and you can kind of look over the shoulder of a team member in the office, you can change it on the fly. You can get more profitable,
Yeah.
save on management fees. So that's one side of the equation where I get a lot of docs that approach me. The other side is way back in this is probably in 2008, 9ish. I launched a program called the DC Income Club, and that's where I first started teaching docs what I was doing in terms of like, hey, you can supplement your practice income by using affiliate marketing, making money online on top of this stuff. And then
Yeah.
that actually grew pretty large. Eventually, like a couple years later, closed that down and reopened a similar thing at the start of the pandemic. But I've always been teaching docs on how to like create extra cash flow on top of their practices because one source of income is extremely risky in today's time. So my
Yeah.
sweet spot is kind of teaching docs how to either acquire businesses for extra cash flow, also online courses, affiliate marketing, writing a best-selling book like I've done, and things of that nature. It's like anything that I've actually done, like I kind of impart that. So a lot of doctors they recognize that they have a successful practice, but I mean, God forbid you get into a skiing accident tomorrow, you break both of your wrists, and you can't do what you need to
Yeah.
do. So a lot of will approach me like, hey, I've been looking at business acquisitions, or they see us doing single family real estate. And I just try to, like, whatever I've done, I can kind of teach and
Yeah.
share with them. So those are probably the primary two that a lot of docs still approach me and come to our seminars
Yeah.
for.
What percentage of your clients is the percentage outside of chiropractic greater now than the percentage of chiropractors, or are chiropractors still the bigger chunk of your client
Yeah,
base?
I would say about 65% still in the profession, because I still
Totally.
am involved quite a bit in the profession.
Yeah.
And then through just helping docs way back in the day with all these different channels, they're like, "Hey, my buddy's an attorney. He does this and this. Can you help him out? Because I know this ad's it's like applicable." And so, like, let me take a look. And then eventually I figured out, like, oh yeah, I can kind of plug and play. And then the process is overall the same. So I've worked with a lot of different industries, and I still get referrals from other docs.
So let's talk social media strategy for a minute. Do you have a few best practices for let's take two buckets. First, let's talk about the brick and mortar local business. When you start with somebody, what are kind of the basic checklists that people, because I think probably like me, most owners have been through 10 or 15 ad agencies now.
Hmm.
And, and then now there's Go High Level. So a lot of us have built platforms on Go High Level. Um, but it's always this moving target. So I'm just and now I feel like at times the feedback we get is we had an account, but it got shut down, or you did inappropriate stuff, or we had to regain the account. Where do what's kind of the basics that just to wipe the slate clean, any brick and mortar operator, what's a few things they need to make sure they have in place no matter what they end up doing with this down the road?
Yeah, I like to break it into very simple forms. There's really three main things you need to be concerned with online or representing your chiropractic practice or brand. One is how you're positioned and perceived in the marketplace. Two is generating traffic and visitors, and three, converting those traffic and visitors into new patient appointments. Right? A lot of doctors unfortunately skip the entire first one, which is why they
Yeah.
look like everyone else.
We hired the back end and bolted it onto nothing, kind of, is what it feels like.
Yeah. I mean, and I didn't really understand the power of good positioning until, like, it really started to kick in for my own brand. And there are several different factors that you need to be aware of, and why somebody would likely choose you and pay a higher price. If you want to be the Dr. Oz of the market, like, how, one, do you hang out with Dr. Oz type of people? Are you in certain circles rubbing shoulders with A players that people can see? Do you have a best-selling book? Have you spoken at any prestigious gigs? Have you been on TV? Have you aligned with credible institutions that spend hundreds of millions of dollars every single year pushing their brand out? You could look at Mercedes or Rolex or whoever these people are. There are strategic ways to align with certain brands all the time. A lot of people in our profession, some of the higher level ones, they align with professional athletes, right? They borrow the credibility of X person, because if you're good enough to see, LeBron James in your clinic, for instance, well, you must be good enough to take care of me.
Yeah.
So I do love to manufacture the perception and celebrity. When I say celebrity, I mean, like, you of a higher status in the eyes of your potential clients and
Yeah.
customers. Once that happens, your advertising, your organic marketing becomes a lot more effective, because you're not competing at the same level as everyone else.
Yeah.
So getting certain assets that position you above everyone else would be something that should be in the back of your mind from the start. Some of those assets are going to take longer to get than others, but reviews, for instance, any chiropractor right now, you can look and see, do I have 2 to 3 times the amount of reviews on Google than my local competitors? If I do, fantastic. Now let me move over to Yelp. As much as I hate Yelp, they're an ethical company. They
I
still
agree.
they still command a lot of traffic, because all of these things are integrated with Apple Maps, which pull back Yelp listings. So it can be a massive new patient generator. Now, if that's dialed in, are there any other local review engines? So in certain cities, maybe Albuquerque, for example, there's something that is broadcast. Everyone knows about it. It's like the top 3 physicians of whatever. There's a lot of traffic can be gained from these smaller directories. So I
Yeah.
like to have at least that reputation angle, like, completely solidified. Once that's done, social media gets a lot easier, because now if I see your content or an ad online, I Google you, I'm going to Google you. That's
Yeah.
typically what happens. And I see, oh, wow, Dr. Miner has 500 five-star reviews at his clinic. It's the real deal, obviously.
Yeah.
So again, manufacturing perception from the front angle there. So That's like the entrance point from the internet in general. You're not doing anything. Get there, make sure you've got like way like 3 to 5 times more feedback and reviews and testimonials. This includes social proof. Go
Matt,
ahead. Yeah.
I want to pause you there because that's gold. And I think that gets skipped over when we're like, I just need new patients. Hire a marketing agency. They've got ads. All of what you just talked about tends to not even cross, I think, an owner's mind. But I could see people hearing that going, gosh, let's take my clinics in Albuquerque. There's not a lot of celebrity there. There's not professional athletes. You know, the few chiros I've seen lean into this, they do it around MMA because there's a big martial arts community there.
Mhm.
Where would you start? You know, obviously, let's put Google reviews aside. I think everybody here can figure out how to do Google reviews. But in terms of the celebrity, the institutions, I remember back in the day seeing you affiliated with Harvard.
Mhm.
I think some of those things, you know, I used to pay to be on the big radio station with Rush Limbaugh, and nobody
Yeah.
realized that I bought that space. They
Yep.
thought I was that good of a doctor that I got it. And but I don't know how that works in today's world. So where does how could somebody start manufacturing that if they didn't have a lot of connections?
Yeah, it happens two ways. You can pay for it, which is what most do, and this is what most don't even realize. Like a lot of those interviews or these celebrities rubbing with celebrities, like all of these are photo ops and paid opportunity. There's somebody's money's exchanging hands all the time. There's a publication here in Atlanta, the Best Physicians of Atlanta. It looks like, I mean, Best Physicians of Atlanta, best cosmetic surgeon, this and that. They pay 10 grand a piece to be in this publication. Maybe they might have to meet some certain criteria, but it is a pay to play element. There
Yeah,
are opportunities that are definitely more prestigious than others. For instance, if there's a local news anchor that does interviews, for example, that is really well known and can get you on a local ABC, that's extremely valuable if
yeah,
you understand how to market and then promote the asset. So we get this asset, and we're not even trying to necessarily. If you can get people on the front end from the actual appearance, that's wonderful. But if it's pre-recorded, um, it should definitely go on your site as featured in ABC's local X or
yeah,
whatever it is. Then I take that piece of content strategically, and let's say we're running Facebook ads. One side of Facebook ads, I do, yes, of course, we like the direct response component where we get people now and we can kind of predictably measure based on a certain ad spend. The other side of the Facebook ads is to get really well known and shape market perception of what people are thinking about you.
wow,
So let's say it's 200,000 people. You can bet I'm going to take that interview that I did and basically just give it away for free. I don't have the luxury of having my content like every single video go viral like an Alex Hormozy. You know,
yeah,
certain the algorithms favor certain personalities and channels for a lot of different reasons we could talk about, but I can strategically spend so my market knows who I am, that I'm different from everyone else, that I'm seen on TV. Naturally, if I'm seen on TV or I speak at Harvard or NASDAQ or if I'm a best selling author, subconsciously you expect to pay more for this service anyway. Like it's not cheap.
yeah.
It's like it's one of those things. So yeah, that's what I would do with just that one asset. I would take it and I would push it out, and not even just on Facebook. I would push it out on Instagram, anywhere where my audience is. I need them to see this because it brands me as the authority.
Yeah.
Then we can retarget and do all this other cool stuff on the back end with like advertising and marketing.
So that's step one is that brand awareness, personal awareness, elevate your credibility. And then I cut you off. And then what was the second part in there?
Yeah, the next thing is because there's a lot of ways to generate traffic and visitors to the site, you should have a baseline of where you're at. Hopefully, you've got Google Analytics installed and you could say, I'm getting 300 or 1,000 people per month to my website. Then from there, we can say, okay, now let's stack on this first layer. And maybe it is Facebook. Maybe we're really going to commit to something. We're going to post 7 times a week, once a day to our followers. We're going to invest $1,000 in ad spend initially to start off with to do direct response, to do the branding side of the equation, the positioning. And we're going to get the Facebook check-in initiative. We're going to have this coming in my office. There's like a dozen ways you can integrate Facebook and get more traffic and influence and patients through your door just from that platform alone. And then once your team has a handle on some of the basics there, well, now we can stack on Instagram, and we can really go roll into Instagram of the paid side, have a separate budget for Instagram, and then also really focus on Instagram Reels. So we're going to now create a content calendar, and this is so foundational to every practice, but you should have a content calendar
Yeah.
every single week. we know that we're going to repurpose these videos on all these different channels like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and Facebook. But bare bones, just starting out, let's just get it on one channel. Let's get it on Facebook, get in a
Yeah.
routine, get in a habit. Now we're comfortable here. Then we'll stack on Instagram and do kind of the same thing, but we'll have our team member be doing this for us because we understand the process and protocol, and we're trying to remove ourselves from that day to day.
Yeah. So I gotta ask Matt, because every time I've heard you speak a couple times back in the day at Parker and your book. I've always wondered, why don't you have an ad agency? With Because I feel like you're the brain or the foundation that so many of the ad agencies, they just bought the course, they learned how to do it, and then they get some experience, but they're missing that whole component that you've really based your career around. And I've always wanted to ask you that. How come you haven't, and I know you love acquiring stuff. I'm like, how come you haven't acquired an ad agency? Why have you, and I'm sure it's strategic. I know you. So, yeah, I've always wanted to ask you that. What are your thoughts?
Part of it's personal fulfillment too, right? I actually sold a company that had it was a combination SEO Facebook company, Facebook ads. This is probably 9 years ago, I think it was. And then for a couple years, we did do ads for clients, but it just wasn't something I was extremely passionate about. I mean, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good income. It was continuity. We got results.
Yeah.
However, at the end of the day, where even if you're in practice or you're an entrepreneur, you kind of look at all these aspects. I've got this here, here, here. Where do I want to play the most? What gives me the internal fulfillment? And what I found is that even though the one-on-one is not scalable, if from a personal satisfaction standpoint, if I can get into your practice, you fly in or whatever, and I can look under the hood and we can put together a strategy and I can help train your team, it's a done deal. Like you're eventually going to pop. And I value my reputation. I love working with these types of clients too because we end up becoming really good friends. And
Hmm.
I seem to attract really good people into my sphere in life, so that gives me more fulfillment. And then a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, well, I'm doing this personal coaching. Maybe I can kind of fuse this with my own little mastermind where we do cool stuff in different parts of the world. We're still learning a lot of social media, or I'm teaching them and bringing in experts like how we're investing and whatnot. And so I kind of evolve that to a one to many. So I'll still take some private coaching clients and I'll still have like the social media mastermind or experiential stuff too. That's really nice, from a personal fulfillment standpoint. Plus, yeah, I mean, it gives us a great life on top of the other,
Yeah.
sources we have.
That's a great answer. You always love somebody who knows what they're passionate about, and it's not just about making money. There's a lot of ways to make money. It's what's fulfilling to you in the end.
100%.
I'm curious about another thing that we won't go into depth here, but you alluded to it. You've gotten good at learning how to acquire companies. A lot of companies, there's a big opportunity with people retiring right now,
Mm-hmm.
as you talk, I just can't help but think that you've got the ultimate secret weapon when you go acquire a business is what you know and what we just talked about. Like so many of these companies you acquire, I'd imagine, don't know anything, but they've never built a brand. They were just in the community for 30 years, which actually has a tremendous amount of value if they have a good brand name. But
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine you marry that with everything you've spent time learning. Can you talk just briefly? Am I right or am I wrong that that's your superpower behind acquiring? Because when we talked, if you don't mind my sharing,
Yeah, yeah.
I was fascinated how you've acquired a sign language company,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd seen some of your stuff. I thought, and I think you kind of came close to an HVAC deal, but I know you've been in this space of acquiring other companies, and I was sort of curiously pushing back, like, what's the I know what it's like operating chiropractic businesses, stepping into this field that I don't know anything about. And we had an interesting conversation, but um I guess what my question is, how much is your superpower of understanding the power of branding and what you've learned? Does that help give you confidence in doing this? And would you still be going this route of acquiring other businesses if you didn't know that component the way you do? Would it alter, the way you're moving your time and energy and where you're spending it?
That's a great question. If I didn't have the superpower that I have, I would still venture into this realm
Would you?
because the last 5 years really taught me again just from being on social media. Imagine if just you were just wiped out online, like right now. How
Yeah.
what percentage of your business would that be? Your practice? maybe I don't. I mean, because
Big chunk.
yeah,
Yeah.
chiros are typically on the forefront in getting access to research far way ahead. It seems like we kind of know certain things, and then the masses finally catch up. In the
Yeah.
last 5 years, in particular, COVID, well, getting shadow banned, I'm like, it didn't occur to me at the time, but then I realized after, I was like, this is like the ultimate hedge on top of it to be able to create additional streams of cash flow. And not that I'm going to
Yeah.
be in the weeds in the business. That's not the goal. The goal is to fly above the business and have it as a
Yeah.
great source and have an operator in there. So, but there are opportunities out there, even if you have a little bit of uh, skill set in marketing. Everyone knows how to get Google reviews these days. It's
Hmm.
really simple. The company that we acquired, it had like one or two Google reviews over a 15-year span. It had no website. Um,
Wow.
it had strong relationships. It was built on relationships. And I said, "Are you telling me she built a couple $1 million a year business on these relationships, but there's literally zero internet?" And I couldn't believe it at first. And so when I looked a little bit more in due diligence, looked at the P&Ls and the balance sheet, and it was, I don't know, probably 14 font like this on one P&L. I still didn't believe that. It's like, is it really this simple? And there's just no extra things going out. And but there are these, I don't want to call them outdated business models, but they're just not, they don't seem to be evolved into the world that we live in. And you could take even a little bit of what you know and drop it in one of these and see some massive growth. So that does
Yeah.
excite me from that side. And I just think that there's just no opportunity. Like, you can't get this type of return in real estate or anywhere else. It's just, if I had to do it all over again and I had to start from scratch, comparing the world that I came from of starting everything up, and grateful that I did because I built a loyal client base and whatnot. But when you buy a business the right way, you get instant customers, instant sales, instant employees. It's been there for 10 plus years. You've already went through that hurdle that Michael Gerber talks about of 8 out of 10 businesses failing. And
Yeah.
I like to get into something that's corona proof, it's recession proof, it is recurring income preferably, because I don't. I also learned that it's a lot easier to, well, it's the same amount of effort to market, advertise, and to get one client that pays you over and over and over every month. Now,
Yeah.
like the sign language interpreting agency that we talked about, that is a
Yeah.
market that unfortunately they're going to need these services for the rest of their lives. So it's not like, you know, it's not going to end anytime soon, right? So
Yeah.
there's definitely benefits, and I would recommend any docs that are thinking about creating additional streams of income to explore this option. Because like the light bulb went off on me, I'm like, I can't even believe, if I look at Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and all these high level entrepreneurs, they've acquired their base through acquisition. I mean, you could even acquire a practice potentially next door. I don't know if the doctor has a heart
Yeah.
problem, could be a death in the family. I don't know. People sell for a lot of different reasons, and
Yep.
you instantly absorb, sometimes for zero to minimal money out of your own pocket. That's like, I know it seems like wild, but that's what we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all these baby boomers are exiting, and a lot of them have businesses that they've built a great business. They don't have anybody to leave it to, and they don't know how to sell it, and
Sure, sure.
a lot of opportunity. You know what I'm curious, Matt, is probably like a lot of people, I see a lot of information when I open up social media around marketing my businesses.
Hmm.
Lots of advice, lots of experts. Who I'm thinking of right now as you talk is Kevin O'Leary. He has this great way of talking about signal versus noise. What matters, what's just noise and what's signal. So I'm curious, my last question to you is, when you're looking to learn and stay on top of what you need to know for your clients, who's the signal? Who are you learning from versus the noise that all of us are inundated with from social media every time we open it up? I'm kind of curious where you go to get inspired, where you go to stay out in front of this and kind of keep your unique perspective on this. Any thoughts or insights or wisdom there?
Yeah, I mean, I follow people. I'm in certain circles. A lot of it comes because we're always testing a bunch of stuff, and I have a lot of clients that are testing stuff here and there. We figure out, oh yeah, Facebook changed this, and then 6 months later they'll tell you they changed it, like the targeting like doesn't work anymore. So I get a lot of my information actually just from being on the ground and seeing how algorithms shift or what's working, and um, quite honestly, now, I mean,
That's great.
there are people out there, and there's so many depending on which area you want to go. Like I was just reading, which blog was it the other day? They were talking about AI generative search and how it's just organic listings are being impacted, and
Yeah.
potentially that's coming to the local market as well. 15 to 25% drops in traffic, like SEO, Moz, or
Yeah.
some of these other companies. Neil Patel is a really smart dude when it comes to
Yeah. He
like
is.
digital marketing or even SEO and social media. But I see a lot of stuff that from so many different places.
Yeah.
Most of what's on my TikTok feed. And by the way, if you take the time to really watch good stuff there, it's amazing what it can feed you.
I love TikTok. I got to, I was in Monaco. I got back yesterday
Oh, nice. That's right.
and
Yeah.
I use, it was a neat experience, but I use TikTok now for like what to do when I'm in the city for restaurants, and I got locked out and I lost my account. I'm not sure why. I think one of my VAs offshore might have triggered it. And so all of a sudden I'm without TikTok in another country. Fortunately, my daughter had set up another account, but it had no algorithm. So pretty quick. So it was funny this morning. I opened it up and my wife's like, "So now you're looking at real estate in Monaco?" And I'm like, "No, I think I typed in a couple restaurant searches, but it knew that quick. Like, show this guy this." Anyways, it's a fantastic app. You're seeing Kairos use it too, though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you actually bring up a good point, and I talked about this last year at our social media summit. And it's not just the newer generations that are doing this. People would actually rather use social for SEO in a lot of cases. Well, I should say they would rather search on social for a lot of things. I could go to Google and type in top 3 Italian restaurants in Monaco, but TikTok gives me the visual top 3 restaurants
Yeah.
Monaco. And so there's been a massive shift, and market share is definitely being taken away from Google. So if you like even way back in the YouTube 2006 days when you could optimize a video, title, tags, and description, you could see it on Google's first page within like 24 hours. That same thing is happening on TikTok, Instagram
Yeah.
Reels, and these short form channels. So it's a massive gold rush where you'd want to be smart to, like, again, pay attention to your own habits and optimize for keywords that
Yeah.
potential patients are searching. But uh, I digress there, but you brought up that really great point. The TikTok algorithm in the newsfeed itself, though, so I'm like all my content is business acquisition related, real estate investing. It's just amazing. I'm getting like an MBA here,
Yeah.
or commercial
Yeah.
stuff. And so if you tailor the feed correctly, it'll bring just very valuable information to you.
That's awesome, Matt. Well, I appreciate your mind and I appreciate the clarity that I don't know that I had before we started this conversation, but I'd seen it, but I hadn't really solidified your differentiating factor for chiropractors is really understanding the building blocks of how to build a good brand and foundation so that then all this other stuff actually works and goes somewhere. Because again, I think so many of us have, and there's some great UAC members. I'm not knocking on anybody, but when you buy the ad,
Mm-hmm.
you're just thinking about the ad, and all that other foundational work that you've always been teaching for over a decade now is important. But you kind of get sold into not thinking about it has been my experience.
Yeah, and you might know this as well as anyone too, because you have like many businesses. As when you build a strong brand, let's say in the Cairo side, once I really started to kind of know and call in that relationship capital. So, for example, let's say something happens, or in 2 years, I mean, you find another passion. Like who knows what's going to happen in 2 to 5 years? You still have this entire list of people that you've helped. They trust you. And I know for me, when we were looking at buying more real estate and raising capital, I said, I wonder if any of my clients might want to do deals with me, like in this realm. I've got all these docs. Let me just put out an email. So I put out an email. I had like 45 docs. Like, hey, I've got capital on the sidelines. I'm an accredited investor. If you're investing in something, let me know and let's have a talk. And I was blown away because I was like, wow,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. So you just never know. But that would have never happened if I wouldn't have built a strong personal brand
Yeah.
with those individuals, and then not just focused on, let's say, an ad per se, and then not given any substance or depth afterwards.
Yep. That's that's a brilliant spot for us to wrap it up, Matt, and a great insight, man. I really appreciate you. Always great being around you, and you're just one of those guys that is the epitome to me of the great parts of our profession. You're not, flashing everything from the rooftops, but you're consistent and you've been successful and you've helped a lot of people, and you don't have people wanting to do deals with you. Haven't helped them already. So we love having you in UAC, man, and thanks for taking time just to share here on the masterclass. I know our members are going to get a ton of value from this.
Appreciate you, Alan. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Have a great one. We'll see you,
See ya.
Matt. Take
Ciao.
care. Bye.
Ciao.